What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lotus Asakor, the one who never knows best, and in today's video I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about Bleach Rebirth of Souls, which is the brand new console game that just got revealed by Bandai Namco just a couple of days ago. If you haven't seen it already, I'm sure I'll have some gameplay, trailer footage, the trailer footage throughout this video and whatever. And I also did my own live reaction and like first impressions to the reveal and everything like that. If you haven't seen that video, I'll probably link it in the description down below, as well as also as a card at the end of this video. But I have like a lot of thoughts and opinions I kind of want to get out there in regards to this game and this style of game, because I'm seeing a lot of conversation about this on Twitter, as well as a little bit of misinformation and everything like that. And I also want to speak a little bit about people who are developing the game and a lot of things like that. Like I don't have like any notes or anything written down, just kind of a lot of stuff in my head that I just kind of want to get out there. And so that's why we're making this video. So first things first, this game is being published by Bandai Namco, which is no surprise, and is being developed by a company known as Tamsoft. Now, the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Tamsoft is that they're being credited a lot online as having had a hand in the development of Melty Blood type Lumina, but that's not necessarily true. I saw this tweet making its rounds, and there's already a community note on this as well, and I've seen other people kind of intervene and say, hey, that's not quite right. But if we jump over to the monitor, let me just full screen real quick. You'll see that we have this tweet from this user, and I don't think they were trying to intentionally misinform anybody, but it says here on the website, developer is Tamsoft Corporation, and it says the people who did Melty Blood. Now the community note here notes, French Bread developed Melty Blood, Tamsoft were only employed for additional help. Now for you guys on my channel, for the majority of you guys are fighting game enthusiasts and, you know, players and everything like that, so you probably already knew that Melty Blood was developed by French Bread and not Tamsoft, right? What you may or may not know is that Tamsoft are the people who helped them with the PC port of the game, which is noteworthy because the PC port of Melty Blood type Lumina was not very good at the start. When Type Lumina came out, playing the game on console was definitely the superior way because PC had like region locking and like crashing issues and everything like that, and this wasn't in the best state. I believe it's a lot better now, and I wonder actually quickly, who did the Under Night in Birth PC port, because that game is also developed by French Bread, and I wonder if Tamsoft also did that port, because that port was also really bad at launch. I don't know if I can see who did that quickly, and it doesn't look like it, but regardless, Tamsoft did not develop Melty Blood. They just kind of helped with the port, and the port wasn't that great. Now, I don't say this to kind of rain on everybody's parade and go, oh, this game's not going to be good, because I actually think the opposite, right? There's a lot of people who immediately are writing this game off because this game is more likely than not going to be an arena fighter. And people have this like disposition against arena fighters, and where they think if a game is an arena fighter, it's automatically going to be bad, which is really ironic considering the fact that right now, most people are extremely excited about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which, by the way, is an arena fighter. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, but it's being made by the guys who made Tenkaichi. Yeah, that's Spike Chunsoft, and they made those games back in the day, but they are also the people who made One Piece Burning Blood and One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, aka a game nobody played that got shut down within like a year. They also made Jump Force. None of these games are games that people really liked that much or did particularly well in terms of like their reception. They may have sold some copies because the initial hype and prospect of them seemed promising or exciting. And obviously as anime fans, people are just desperate to play games with their favorite characters, you know, and they pump out these cash grabs that people buy and then realize it's not that good. And those are all prime examples of like bad arena fighters. But there's obviously a very clear difference in that style of video game compared to what they're doing with Sparking Zero. Sparking Zero is actually looking like, and I don't say this loosely because I hate when people throw this word around for just willy-nilly and everything, but Sparking Zero is legitimately looking like one of the saviors, if not the savior of anime games. I would say that overall, anime games have been in a pretty bad state. The best anime game I think we've gotten in the last 10 years genuinely is Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is obviously a 2D fighting game developed by Arc System Works. And even that game has gone downhill, not really in part largely due to Arc Sys, because I believe at some point Bandai Namco took over the reins of that and kind of drove it in the direction that it is now. And again, this game is being published by Bandai, but so is Sparking Zero, and at the moment we have no reason to believe, other than their track record, that the game's going to be bad in any way, shape, or form. Everything that we've seen so far from Sparking Zero looks incredible, from the gameplay to the visuals to what they're offering in the story mode, and to the content, the roster, like everything. It's all green flags, and people have been playing the game at this point now at Anime Expo and previously at what was it, E3 or no, Summer Games Fest, right? Everything's pointing in the right direction, so things look good. So even if a developer or publisher has shown incompetence in the past, it doesn't mean that you can't be cautiously optimistic, but it does mean that you should have tempered expectation. But I just want to go on the record to say that I don't think arena fighters as a genre are bad, and that if a game is an arena fighter, it's automatically going to be bad, because I think there are good ones. The Budokai and Tenkaichi games are arena fighters. The Naruto Storm games are arena fighters. Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles is an arena fighter. Now, I'm not saying that these games are amazing, but in terms of anime games, I think they kind of are among the best of the best when it comes to them, because the bar is pretty low. Frankly, it's in hell. Okay, we haven't had the greatest games in the past, especially in recent times, right? The Jujutsu Kaisen game, to me, major flop. You know, I'm surprised that there are so many like My Hero One's Justice defenders out there, because I thought that game was really bad, and maybe one of these days I'll go in depth and compare a bunch of games to talk about the things I do and don't like and everything, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit in this video. But I think the My Hero One's Justice games are pretty bad. Obviously, Jump Force was dreadful. Does anybody remember that Black Clover Overwatch game that came out, or Naruto Overwatch, which is Shinobi Striker? Like, you know what I mean? Like, those games weren't very good, which kind of leads me to the next point I want to get into. But I just want to say that, like, more often than not, the best games that we get when it comes to anime games are fighting games, whether that's a traditional 2D fighter or some sort of arena fighter. And even if they have a lot of bad arena fighters as well, I find it interesting that so many people, and this is no shade to anyone in particular, because I know if you see me talking about it on Twitter, you might have seen me interacting with some people and commenting on this myself, which is part of the reason why I made this video, because I realized I had a lot I wanted to say on the topic. But I've seen a lot of people who are like, I'm so sick and tired of arena fighters, I want something different, blase, blase, blah. But I feel like the majority of the time, whenever they try to do something different with an anime game, it's pretty bad. I think Shinobi Striker is a terrible game. That Black Clover game was terrible. Even Kakarot, which should have just been an RPG, I guess maybe that was not the best example because I'm alone in this one, but Kakarot, do I have it here on the shelf? Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, to me, is one of the absolute worst, if not the worst, Dragon Ball game I have ever played. It is the only Dragon Ball game in my entire collection that I've ever played or owned and have never beaten, and probably never will, because I think it's that bad. Sure, it's got some cool DLC with some really nice cutscenes and everything like that. Gameplay wise, I think this game falls extremely short, and this could have been like a modern Legacy of Goku type game for a console, and that would have been a dream come true, but it's not. If you enjoy it, that's cool, that's fine. I think it fucking sucks. When you think of the best anime games that we've gotten in like the last 10 to 15 years, what are they? I would say Dragon Ball FighterZ, Dragon Ball Xenoverse even, the Naruto Storm games. There are some exceptions, like I would say the Attack on Titan games. Those aren't arena fighters. Those are pretty damn good. Those are made by Koei Tecmo. Then you have like the Fairy Tail RPG. Nothing incredible, but I thought it was pretty good. It's also published by Koei Tecmo. Maybe it's just a Bandai Namco thing, but I feel like whenever Bandai tries to do something different, it doesn't really go too well. But I also don't understand this idea of like handing over these IPs to like these developers who don't have a history of like doing things like this prior, or are like far removed from what they normally do. But that's not really the case when it comes to this game, because Tamsoft, while they haven't made like previous like anime titles when it comes to like Naruto, Dragon Ball, Bleach, or anything like that, they do have a certain series under the belt that they are actually known for and developed that you may or may not be familiar with or heard of, and that is Senran Kagura. Now, I had heard of Senran Kagura, like I'm well aware of what it is. I had never played one of the games before though. But to my understanding and to my knowledge, it was basically like, you know, degenerate, like big booby waifu game you play as like these bodacious anime girls, and like it's a hack and slash game, whatever like that, like a Muso game or whatever. Cool, right? I never played it. Wasn't really anything I ever wanted to get into, but I was aware of what it was, you know? If that's what you into, that's what you into, that's cool. However, due to the announcement of this game, right, and me having a lot of questions about its gameplay and how good it's going to be and everything like that, and since we didn't really see a whole lot in the trailer, it got me thinking and wondering, okay, are there any games out there that these guys have made that I can go check out for myself and kind of get an understanding and feel for what type of games that they make and what the gameplay might be like, anything like that? Like, is there anything that might compare to what this Bleach game is going to end up being? And so I looked on Steam, typed in Senran Kagura, and saw that Estival Versus was on sale for like $8. So I bought it. Now, here's the thing. I don't know how much footage I can actually show. I recorded myself playing like maybe the first 20-30 minutes of the game, like getting through the tutorial, because I really wanted to get a feel for like the combat, the system mechanics, and just like the movement of the game, because I feel like those are the important key parts that you really want to get an idea of when it comes to this, right? I think movement, by the way, is like the most underrated aspect of what makes these anime games look and feel really good. Obviously, like pretty graphics is one thing, but I think the movement in a lot of these games is what matters a lot more than I think people realize. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Storm games feels so much better and like head and shoulders above all these other games is because the movement is so fluid. It's not super stiff or like super linear. Like when you're in combat, you feel like you can move in basically any degree of direction, and it's also like pretty fast paced and everything like that as well. So I think movement plays a large factor. So I was really curious how that felt as well. So anyway, I fired the game up and I soon realized that it's significantly more degenerate than I had even thought. And it was something. It was an experience. But anime titty aside, I think the game actually has a pretty solid foundation when it comes to the combat. It goes a lot deeper than just mashing one button and just doing the same attack over and over again. There are combos that you can do and you can link together. There are multiple mechanics. There's a transformation mechanic. You can block and parry in the game. And the more I played, and as I got through like the tutorial in the beginning of the story mode, I realized, oh, okay, there's a lot more you can do in this game than I would have expected. I just talked a lot about how important the movement is, and the movement feels okay. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. I think the Storm games, in terms of movement and just the feel of playing the game, that's the peak when it comes to arena fighters, let's just say. I think overall, maybe you give that to DBFZ in my opinion, right? One of those two. Those are two very different styles, because obviously with arena fighters, they're 3D and Dragon Ball FighterZ is 2D, but I think like those two games probably have like my favorite movement of just any game I've really played, if I'm being honest. It's not even just limited to like anime games or like fighting games, whatever, just like games in general. But that's just me. You may or may not agree with that. This game is obviously 3D, but I wouldn't really compare it to Storm. The closest thing I think that came to Storm was obviously Hinokami Chronicles, which, as we all know, was developed by CyberConnect 2, which is the same developer that does do the Naruto Storm games. Now, granted, CC2 also made Kakarot, but again, sometimes I don't mind companies necessarily branching out, but I think the demand for them branching out is kind of interesting, considering that whenever they do branch out and they make something new, it's usually not good. But again, I don't think most people actually agree with me on the Kakarot thing. There are people that do, but I don't think most people actually do. So I digress. Anyway, going back to it, the movement in the game, I wouldn't say is anywhere near as fluid as like a Naruto Storm game, but it doesn't feel as stiff as like a Jump Force did, or like a J-Stars, or like some of those other arena fighters that are made by Spike Chunsoft, which is also interesting because like you look at Sparking Zero, they very clearly are capable of making games that move and feel and look very differently from what they've been making in the past 10 years. So then it begs the question, why the fuck were they making that bullshit in the first place? Is it a money thing? Is it a care and effort thing? Is it because Shueisha isn't as protected? Well, no, because Dragon Ball's in those games. You know what I'm saying? Because like Dragon Ball was in Jump Force. I don't know. From an art design standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a gameplay perspective, from just like an effort perspective, I don't understand what the thought process was behind any of that bullshit that they pumped out. But here we are. Anyway, getting back to Senran Kagura, the game feels pretty solid. And mind you, this game itself is almost 10 years old. Estival Versus, the game I was playing, came out in 2015. Now, I think they had like some more recent games, whatever, that you might be able to try out. I forget the name of one, but it was like some Cross Ninja something. I don't remember. But that game might even have a little bit of a better feel to it than Estival Versus does. Now, that game was like 30 bucks. I didn't really want to spend 30 bucks on trying it to see how much of a difference it has been, or like how much of a difference it makes and how much better things might feel or play in that game. The gameplay of Estival Versus is pretty solid. I was actually pleasantly surprised and a little bit impressed with it. I would say that my 30 minutes I spent playing it was honestly more fun than what I've had playing a lot of other games that we've gotten recently. And if Bleach is going to play anything like that, then I think the game is in decent hands. Now, doesn't mean that my expectations are super high for the game, and I don't know if Bleach is going to end up being like some sort of hack and slash, or if it's going to be more akin to like a Storm in like terms of stage size and everything like that, because from what we saw very few glimpses, right? But just from like the stages themselves, like how the characters are placed on screen, and just the way things look, it didn't look quite like a Storm. It looked more, and again, take this very lightly, it looked more open, kind of like the Jujutsu Kaisen game, or like what you would expect from like the Jump Force, everything like that. Now, from the few flashes we saw of the gameplay, it looked way more fluid, way more robust, a lot cleaner and smoother than what we get from those games, right? The hit detection actually looked on point. The animations looked really solid, very fast, very beautiful. Like obviously visually everything looks great, but just you gotta, like, the flashes are very few, but what I saw in those flashes looked very similar to what I was getting from Estival Versus. And so that's kind of where I would hang my hat on expecting the game to play like. Like I said, the game is like $8 right now on Steam, so if you want to try it out for yourself, I think it's a pretty good place to start to get an idea of what that Bleach game might feel like. Now, do be warned. And for some of you, this might not be a warning. For some of you, this might be a selling point. For me, it was a warning, okay? It's pretty degen, okay? Like, if you have a fear of anime titty, beware. If you here for that, well, power to you, bro. That's the game for you. All in all, though, I think the phrase of the day is cautiously optimistic, and that's kind of how I feel about this Bleach game. I am a pretty decent Bleach fan. You know, it's not like one of my all-time favorite series, but I like the Bleach series a lot, and I've been a big advocate of it getting a new console game because I would love for that to happen one day. I played Bleach Brave Souls a decent amount. There are a couple of PSP games I played back in the day. I recently got a Nintendo DS for the first time in my life, and I've been collecting old games. I got some Naruto, some Pokemon, and there's some Bleach games out there that I actually plan on buying and collecting and playing as well. And us getting a console game and the announcement of the 1000 Year Blood War, like new core and everything like that, I'm here for it, man. It's exciting times for a Bleach fan, and I'm not even the biggest Bleach fan, but I'm a pretty decently sized one. So I know for those of you who are diehards out there, this has to be really exciting. And I just want to say that, like, we don't have to write this game off before it comes out. I understand the cause for concern. I understand the reason to raise alarm. The track record, like, it speaks for itself, okay? There is more reason to believe that this game will be bad, arguably, than there is to believe that it will be good. But I think it's too early to like make any harsh judgments or criticisms, and then just especially writing it off just because it's going to be an arena fighter. I think that's kind of a shame, because I think that the arena fighter genre has a lot of untapped potential that it really hasn't hit, just because there hasn't been enough care put into it. You know what I mean? I think, again, like Hinokami Chronicles and the Storm games, and Hinokami Chronicles is not it's the closest thing that we've ever gotten to Storm, which is why I like kind of bring it up so much, because I still feel like that's one of those games where like it's got a good skeleton, a good base. It did a good job of like taking Storm and like flipping it into like Demon Slayer and like adding in some different stuff and kind of putting a little twist on it. Like I think that game has so much potential, and could be a lot better with a sequel. And I hope that it honestly gets it one day, because I like Demon Slayer a lot, and I really had a lot of fun with that game at the start. But like I would say that the Storm games, generally speaking, are pretty fucking good anime games. And even if you don't think that, for an anime standard, like even if you think like an 8 out of 10 anime game is like a 5 or 6 out of 10 video game in general, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just kind of like as high as the bar goes, unless you want to talk about like DBFZ or something like that. Like Dragon Ball Xenoverse as well. Like I would say the Xenoverse is different from Storm, but it's like on par. Like those games are very flawed in their own ways. They're far from perfect, and there's a lot of things that, you know, are left to be desired in those games. But like there's a reason why they've sold as many copies as they do. A big part of that is because the IP carries them, but also people genuinely enjoy playing them. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. Even if I have my criticisms, or those are certain games that I don't necessarily play at this point, I think if Bleach Rebirth of Souls manages to hit the level of like a Xenoverse or a Storm game, and again, I think for anime standards those are high expectations, but if it can hit those, I would consider this a pretty damn good game and something that I would be really excited about. And of course, I'll be covering the game as more information comes out. I plan on picking it up unless there's something that comes out that really turns me off from it, and playing it and creating content for it and everything like that. And obviously, as you guys know, Sparking Zero is coming up. I'm looking forward to that as well, and I'll definitely be covering and playing that a lot. Could potentially be getting some footage soon. Who knows? I haven't had a chance to play the game yet, but maybe that'll change in the near future. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think there's, based on what we've seen, anything to immediately like roll your eyes at and then go, oh, this game's going to be ass. You know what I mean? I think we got to give it a little bit more time to cook. You know what I'm saying? Let them cook. They might have done something they might not have. I understand the apprehension. I understand the cause for concern and everything like that, but I'm going to kind of let things rock and see a little bit more before I speak too much on whether or not I think this game's going to be super good or potentially really bad. From what I can tell so far, I have some hopes for it, but you know what I'm saying? High hopes can lead to disappointment, so I ain't gonna get them up too high. But that's, for the most part, everything I kind of want to cover in this video. This is kind of just an excuse for me to ramble a little bit, basically about stuff I was seeing on Twitter and things that I was thinking. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, I think the game could be good, but only time will tell. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all this content that I bring you. With all that being said, that's pretty much all for today. Remember, nothing can happen to you within the bad. Later.